When we say someone is influential, it has to have some kind of scale to it. In the digital world, even parents are influential, but we don't call parents influencers. What's wrong with influencer marketing, and what can you add to your deck and to your approach to get you better results from brands and even with the existing audience? My name is Kaigwa. You're watching Digital Africa. One of the paradoxes of influencer marketing, according to Faris Jacob, the author of Paid Attention, is that the second you pay an influencer, it turns into an endorsement. And for many audiences, they look at that and they know that endorsements are commercially created fiction, meaning that it loses the legitimacy and part of the trust that was there in the first place. I'm here to share with you both the challenges and three ways I think that you can actually build and amplify, even if you have a smaller audience in terms of numbers, because the state of influencer marketing today may count on it. When brands work with influencers, it isn't just the numbers they want or another channel to say something through. What they actually are trading in is trust as a currency. And the idea here is that no matter the size of the audience and the numbers, ultimately they're hoping that that influencer has a certain amount or degree of trust that their audience has in them, and they're trading in that. So when they come and they pay, that's actually what they're truly going for. It's not about purely numbers, but ultimately the results come and the perception is maintained and managed because of trust. If we think about how this trust manifests itself today, we see it in that people get onto social networks, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and others, and they look at the numbers, the audience, the followers, the likes, and other names for it. These can be bought. So some people can give the illusion of an audience and have no trust, but still get influencer engagements and gigs. Why? Because some brands, some clients aren't trading in trust, they're trading in numbers and impressions, which because of ad fraud as well, can be gamed or can be outright falsified. So that's part of the challenge that faces influencers today. You can lose out because somebody else appears to have more numbers than you, and yet you have a substantive case of where even with your limited numbers or audience, you have high trust and can get your audience to take certain actions that generate results. And so that's what you should truly play towards. And that's what I'm hoping these three ways will allow you to unpack, put into your proposal or your presentations, or if you're a brand, start to hold your influencers accountable, because you learn it's not just purely about numbers. Ultimately, the true currency of influencer marketing is trust and association. The first thing, the most important thing, is audience insights. And I'm not just talking about taking screenshots of Facebook insights. I'm not just talking about taking screenshots of, I got all these likes, I got all these comments. That's good, it's valuable, but that's not everything. What I'm talking about here is you actually doing some legwork to figure out who your audience are. And what I mean by that is you want to run a survey of some kind with your audience. Even if it's 5,000 people, even if it's 10,000, or even if it's more than that. If you are able to come up and tell me that 100 of your 5,000 followers or audience filled out a survey and told you where they live, they told you in terms of ranges how much they earn, right? You are able to segment them off of gender as well. And you're able to go a little deeper into their interests than the data and the screenshots will tell you. You have an instant advantage. Because for a lot of people, good is good enough. So brands don't ask for this kind of information. But if you're an influencer looking to get ahead, you will actually want to run a real survey with your actual audience. Some incentives for you could be, you could offer them to have, lunch with you. You could give away, you may have seen this, some sites do this, they'll give away a phone, they'll give away vouchers to coffee shops, to Amazon, so on and so forth. The point of this is that you actually get a constituency of people, a proportion of your total audience, who fill it out in a deeper and very substantive way, that becomes your intellectual property, your uncopyable insights to know, one, the trust the audience have in you, two, the rest of their behavior. Who else do they interact with? What other channels are they to be found? Who else do they follow? You may learn things that allow you to improve the value of your content to them, which improves the value of you as an influencer to your clients, to potential brands, and ultimately to the entire ecosystem. So your audience is the first tip and the first port of call for you when you're trying to get an edge in influencer marketing. If you haven't seen the video where I talk about the death of the content calendar and this idea that everyone is supposed to turn into a sweatshop that is just generating and hiving out dozens and dozens or thousands of posts at a time, you must watch that video. Algorithms are now meaning you can do less content, even as a brand, even as an influencer, and get more returns in terms of reach, impact, and engagement with your audience. So you'll really want to see that video, which we'll link to both in the description below and here on the video, just so you can get the points that I'm about to make with value. The second point is value. So value here is in terms of you figuring out what the most important measurement of success, metric, benchmark, you name it, that the client has. Spoiler alert, it is not always the first thing they tell you. You may have to prod, you may have to push, you may have to interrogate. It's really important you do that, not only to assert yourself and involve yourself and co-create or understand what you can or can't do. Again, you should probably have a list of what you can't do, because if you're trading in trust and you compromise on that, you'll lessen the likelihood that people will interact with your content, and you may actually take the money in the short term, but diminish the impact you're capable of generating with your audience because they trust you and they trust what you genuinely have to say. So value here is about at first learning what the client or the brand or institution that's engaging you, what they have to say and what their goal is, and then you want to either push back on that or interpret that on your own terms and see what you're actually capable of achieving or delivering on. The second thing you want to do when it comes to the actual value you create for your audience, you want to put them first. Even though you have a material relationship with the client, I can't tell you how many times I've been saying since 2013, and we'll link to one of our first trend reports where we talked about this, that if you do not disclose to your audience that there's a material relationship with the client, it actually hurts your trust, and as I said, can diminish your impact. So you will choose how you want to present to the audience that you do have a relationship with this brand or institution. Never forget that the currency you're trading in is the trust of your audience. So you might actually want to disclose to them, you might want to give caveats or any kind of disclaimers that this video is presented by, sponsored by. And if you think I'm kidding, many people now have to actually say this is not a paid endorsement. They have to say that because so many people often assume that it is a paid endorsement, and generally they tend not to trust as much when that's the case. So you want to actually prioritize your audience and say, especially if a brand tries to tell you, oh, we don't want you to disclose that you're working with us, put the trust first. Always. It may be the only thing you're left with after the money and after the business relationship comes to an end, either because it was a campaign or for any other reason. So prioritize your audience because they are the actual value, and trust is the currency you're trading. So you want to make sure that with them, as much as you find out what the client wants, you push back and make sure you can determine what their goals and their metrics and benchmarks are. Then you want to disclaim to the audience or exclaim or just let them know that, hey, this video is brought to you by, you may actually see that from us. We are coming on some great opportunities that we are going to actually go out, and we know who you are as an audience, and actually find brands that align in terms of interests and exclusively limited to them, and retain creative control, but ultimately find out what their goals are, achieve those, and keep your trust in this channel first. So Maybe this is my way of telling you it's coming, but at the same time, I'm also hoping that you take something out of this. The last tip is on leverage. So with influencers and brands, it tends to be very romantic, very lovey-dovey in the courtship time. You're talking big numbers, you're constantly in one another's WhatsApps and whatnot. Then the campaign starts, and then generally the reporting of the final part of the relationship is where things fizzle out. I want to encourage you to take this part the most seriously. If you do have contracts, follow them, set some metrics and some basically like a service level agreement of what people can expect of you. You will answer emails in perhaps 3 hours at the maximum on one business day. You'll get back with quotations, invoices, and the paperwork. And most of all, that with your reporting, that you will be thorough. You will take the right screenshots at the right time. You'll talk about times where you'll actually fall short of the client's expectations. So that will mean that upfront you committed to meeting some kind of targets or goals or expectations. And even if you fall short, come clean. Just say, hey, for one reason or the other, my audience didn't react the way I expected them to. That shows you've got skin in the game and you can think through some ways that you can build a longer term relationship and longer value. If for one reason there's a mismatch, again, come clean, because the data won't lie, but it certainly can be massaged into what the client wants or what the agency wants to see. Be honest, be upfront, be clear, put your audience first. And with the leverage part of this relationship, make sure that your reporting is on time, your communication is pristine, and that you maintain the trust that was there from the beginning of the relationship on this back end. It may be the thing that single-handedly distinguishes you over influencers that have a bigger audience than you, or they even have professional management working with them. Just how clear and consistent you are throughout the whole process will build up what I'm calling leverage that allows you to potentially even raise your rates or negotiate a raise the next time around, because people see there's something different. We entrusted you with a little less, you are very clear with your numbers, and you are very clear on recommendations and ways we can benefit even with our relationships with other influencers. We want them to be as professional as you. That's your leverage. Do not let that part of the relationship slip, because it ultimately may be the difference between you, especially if you don't have the numbers just yet. Audience, you want to learn them inside and out more than any other person or any screenshot will tell you. Bring them together for a physical meeting, get a company to survey them, or best of all, you survey them and give them an incentive to one lucky participant. Value, you want to learn what the client wants and desires, but ultimately maintain the trust in your audience. Leverage, you want to make sure that at the end of the day, the relationship was very professional and that you are giving recommendations and you're being fair enough to say that maybe not everything went perfect. The challenge of a lot of influencers is they are desperate at the end to say every single thing went well and perfect, even when some people might know it didn't. That might do a disservice to your client and ultimately might not earn you the character and composure and relationship to do more or to get the referrals that you deserve. Those are the 3 tips all summed up on how you can transform your influencer marketing. Your bonus tip this time is you determining what side of the pendulum you sit on. Are you purely in awareness, meaning that you're standing on your soapbox, taking the big picture talking points from a client and just exclaiming those? Ideally, you want to switch or move yourself to actually quantifying what that trust and preference of your audience in you means. How you do this is you'll want to track your links. You'll ultimately want the type of client where you can draw some kind of a straight line between what you said, what you asked people to do in terms of a call to action, and whether anybody followed through. If you can determine that, you are entering an elite area of influencers. And it's not about the numbers now. It's about you taking a percentage or proportion of your audience and shifting not just purely from awareness and impressions and the top of the funnel, but further down towards conversions, and determining that from the client could give you even a revenue share potentially of whatever your client is actually promoting and in this case selling. So the quicker and the more tactical you are in figuring this shift out, the better off you'll end up being. And if you're a client, you want to start to have an all-star league of just a handful of influencers who you know can generate this side of results, in addition to awareness, where the overwhelming majority of influencers now sit on. Thanks for watching this video. I'm sure it's going to get a good conversation going, so I look forward to interacting with you in the comments, learning what you think. Do you think I'm off? Am I spot on? Somewhere in the middle? Let me know. Tell a friend, tag someone you know would love to see this, and most of all, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us get a boost off of YouTube and really just make sure that these videos get the chance to be seen and interacted with a lot more. Plus, you'll be the first to hear from us. Sign up and subscribe to join 1,700 other leaders and readers of our weekly newsletter called The Letter N. You'll find the link below in the description. And if you've not seen any of our other videos, I would encourage you to see Is the Content Calendar Dead, or our previous video on content calendars and this shift in agency world around content and algorithms. It sounds crazy, the video is a bit long, but I'm hoping that you'll take the time to see it. Most of all, I can't wait to chat to you, comments, social media, hit us up. We cannot wait to get a conversation going on this, because ultimately, my big idea is that some of you will be able to double your rates or significantly increase them if you're able to follow some of this advice. Let me know. And my name is Kaigwa. You're watching Digital Africa. Thank you.